Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us live this afternoon for your advanced goal setting guide. I'm so excited about this one, so thank you so much for joining me. My name is Sarah Bennett-Nash and I am going to be your host with the Enterprise Vault this afternoon. For those of you that don't know me, I have over 20 years of experience in the corporate world, managing global teams, and at the moment I'm an MD in a FTSE 100 company, which, if you don't know, in the UK is one of the biggest companies that is listed on a UK exchange. And that experience has just been absolutely phenomenal. And I wanted to create something, build something that enables me to give back some of the knowledge that I have been so fortunate to gain along the way. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. And this is really important work. And actually, it embodies everything that we're about at the Enterprise Vault, because we know that if you believe that you can make a difference, you truly will in this world. And what we want to do is help you build all of that skill and the talent that you have within you. And we're going to help you in terms of the toolkit that will help you feel empowered to push through and really develop that confidence, which will help you vault to the next level. So last week we had an amazing group of people here. I'm so grateful to have the people that join us every week for our now evolving every Sunday workshops, because they are really quite incredible, and we've had some amazing feedback so far along the journey. So please, if you are joining us here today, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means the world to me that you would share your time, and I would salute you for doing this work, because it is such vital work in terms of what we're talking about today. We are focused on advanced goal setting, and what makes it advanced? Well, last week we gave you the fundamental basics, the toolkit as to how you can start structuring goals. And what we did is a very formulaic view of building up short-term, medium-term and long-term goals. And we touch very briefly on how you do that. And really it is working through from the 10-year view all the way back as to really what you want to achieve in the next year, and then building it so that you can actually start achieving your goals. Because what so many of us do is set New Year's resolutions, which are fantastic, they get us going, and then we either just fail and we just give up in the second week. That is about 90% of us. Some people will push through that, and then they go to the end of the month and they fulfill their January goal, and then it falls off. They don't know what to do next because they've achieved their goal. So this, the advanced piece of this, is about setting yourself up, not just so that you achieve the first goal, but so you are moving towards every single step towards that 10-year goal that you have. And that is the aspiration where you want to be living your life in 10 years' time. And that, my friends, is where the freedom comes, because you have built a system that helps you with the small goals, building towards those bigger goals. And that's what we're going to focus on today. And actually, this work is probably some of the most difficult work that we do, because it involves us going a little bit deeper, and sometimes it feels a little bit uncomfortable. So just stick with me, because it's when you get out of your comfort zone and you feel that level of uncomfortableness that you really do start to push through and bolt into that next level. And that is exactly where you want to be, because that is life-changing, transformational stuff. And I'm really grateful to have fallen upon some of this work, because it's literally changed my life. I think about where I was, 4 years ago. I set this company up 3 years ago, and 4 years ago, I was in an awful place. I had a great job. I had an amazing husband, I just bought a flat, which I really wanted to move out of a smaller box. It was a lovely box, but I wanted to move out of the smaller box, and I bought a bigger flat, and everything was great. I was married, great job, all this great stuff. And then the realization as I moved into this new flat and we started to renovate, that we had some serious issues. We had a cowboy builder who stole a lot of money from us, and we somehow had to recuperate from that. And this is the moment when I was in a deeply distressful financial situation where it triggered me to really just draw the line in the sand and start doing this really, really difficult work. It's when I sort of went back to my goals and said that, you know, okay, I've got, like, on the surface what looks like to be a fabulous life, but deep underneath I was quite unhappy. And it was almost like our cowboy builder was meant to, you know, find his way into our life, because he really did push me to the next level. And it was so awful as we were going through it. It was so awful. You know, just not only financially, but I was really heavily pregnant at the time, and the emotional stress of it all was just, oh, awful. But what it did is it forced me to go back to the basics, because on the surface, as I said, everything seemed amazing and wonderful, but actually underneath I was deeply unhappy. And despite everything coming together, I had literally everything I wanted. I had the flat, the husband, baby on the way, who incidentally was a very long journey. And that was an emotional stress in itself. But the cowboy builder was really the tipping point where I just went, enough is enough. I have to change this and get back into the driving seat, because I'd completely lost control of what was happening. And that's exactly what I did. And it's by using this toolkit that we're going to talk about today that actually I really, really made a big transformation in my life. And I am so much happier and so much stronger as a result of some of these tools that I'm going to talk to you about today. Because what it has made me realize, that even when the stuff hits the fan and it gets really quite challenging, that I've got a really good toolkit that I can fall back on, and I can always rely on that. So it doesn't matter what the universe throws at me, I'm in a really good place to tackle it, because I have got the fundamental basics to build goals, to move through those goals, and to really make sure I keep that 10-year goal really in sight, because it is amazingly quick. It's amazing how quick that rolls around, and you do not want to get to your 10-year goal or you're 10 years down the line and realize you're really off track of missing some of the fundamental things you want to achieve in your life. And we all have them. They're all so inherent within us as human beings, whether it's financial goals, whether you want to build a charity, whether you want to help your family in a certain way. We all have these goals. So what I'm going to challenge you today is to bust out the workbook that we sent you, and to really quieten the mind, put everything away, all the distractions, the phone, all of that stuff, and just focus on what we're going to talk about today. Because some of this stuff is quite hard, and it's going to really require some focus from you to be able to move through that next level. So get your cup of tea, I've got mine somewhere, and settle in, get your notebook out, and here we go. So we've just given a quick recap of what and how you set goals. If you haven't seen last week's video, go back and watch it first if you can, and really get into 10-year, 5-year, what do I want to achieve this year that will significantly move me towards my overarching aspirations in that 10-year goal. The point which I want to really, really build on today is about the fact that really you need to do that hard work to understand why it is that you want to achieve those goals and why it is that you have those aspirations. because we all have things that inherently we want to do. But what seems to happen is they just sort of evolve and we don't really think about it. We have a lucid type of response as to the types of things we want to do. And then eventually somehow we just end up there. If you get into the real work around why it is that you really want to achieve, you can start really trying to get into the principles, and the principles which make up effectively the values of who you are the things which really are going to trigger you to push through those goals. It's going to give you the hunger and the drive to really excite you and get you really, really involved in achieving those goals. And the hunger aspect of this is so, so important, because if you're not hungry and you don't have the drive, you're going to start something, and like your New Year's resolutions, it will likely drop off. Or you'll have a huge goal and then you'll get there and then you'll stop. My marathon training is a really good example of that. I've run 5 marathons and I love running. It's, you know, part of who I am. It's my escapism. It gets my endorphins running. I'm in my happy place where I've got a pair of trainers and I'm just lost with myself and the world. Each time I've had a marathon goal, to get a new PB or do a new course that's a bit more tricky, each time I have put my running trainers away for a couple of weeks and then slipped into some bad habits, and then the training that I want to do for the next one is a lot harder because I just haven't kept up that consistency. And why that was is because I didn't have the underlying processes that will enable me to reach goal 1 and then connect it to the second goal. And the connection is the really important piece, because the connection is the thing that enables you to go whoop into the next goal, and then you connect this one and then you go whoop into the next goal. And that's how you get into this really high level of performance and managing much bigger goals that you're aspiring to be. And once this starts happening to you, it's so exciting because you can really start seeing how the overall impact of this can impact your life in a really good way. So the principles piece of this really requires you to go back and understand exactly why it is that you want to do what you're trying to do. Now, when I looked back at it, we moved to this flat because my husband and I was pregnant and I wanted to have a bit more space. And I think subconsciously I probably knew that I would want to have another child, but never expected it. Given the journey that we had with Chloe, never expected it to happen. And so when it did happen, I was totally unprepared for that. And really the next level of what was about to come in terms of renovating and then maintaining and then actually enjoying the space that we live in, just there was no connection to the second goal. And so that's why it all fell sort of flat for almost 6 months or so, with a huge financial struggle attached to it, because I just wasn't prepared for it. But when I took a step back, I really understood the principle behind moving to a bigger place and taking that ambitious step to stay, in the local area that we were, and because we didn't want to move out at that point. So the principle here is that I'm really, really family centered, and I hadn't realized actually how family centered I was. And since I've identified that and put it in my list of principles as to who I am as a person, it's actually really helped me in terms of pushing me towards my goals. Because what I do is that when bumps in the road come along and they derail you, I go back to my principles and I don't get so emotional about the bump in the road, the thing that has taken me off track, or the things that are out of my control. And so one amazing way to look at this is to really think about those 5 principles that really make up fundamentally who you are as a human being. For me, I'm really family centered. Family is number one, and they are so, so important to me. And everything that I do is actually working towards creating a better life and a more exciting life, something that sets us alive every single day. And that is incredibly important for me, as especially as the little ones get a little bit older. And it's really challenging right now, because that's been completely taken off track because we're all at home. But because I'm so principle based and I have this overarching goal, I'm doing things even in this period of challenge, even within the times of COVID, where I'm not sort of going out and doing as much public speaking as I usually would do. I'm doing other things. I have found my connections at my old university, who's connected me to another university, and I'm doing quite a lot of work with students at the moment, which is absolutely mind-blowing and so valuable for me and for the students that I interact with. So that has been incredible and really good, because it has enabled me to keep momentum on the public speaking piece, because that is where I want to be. Like, that is my overarching goal as to where I'm working towards. So principle number one is family first, and they're my heartbeat. They are so important to me. Principle number two is financial wealth is extremely important to me. And why? Why is it so important to me? I grew up in a very privileged upbringing, and I'm so grateful for that. We had an incredible childhood and lived a very fortunate life. When we were a little bit older, in teenagehood, my parents got divorced, and it sort of triggered a very difficult period of time for my father, and the end result was a really sad demise. And we lost my dad to a heart attack, and then found out that the reason for that was because he was under so much stress financially, and eventually we declared him bankrupt. I don't think I've ever publicly said that before, but it was a really obviously painful time for us all. But that realization that not having financial freedom, in fact, the polar opposite of that, had resulted in such a tragic situation that really could have been prevented, was a moment of clarity. It was a sad moment, but it was also a moment of clarity for me, because I knew at that moment that I never wanted to put me or my family through that ever again, because it was incredibly painful. And we really could have done something about that. So principle number two is incredibly powerful for me. So you can see how your principles start really driving who you are as a person, and actually how you respond to things. Now, wake up zone, because when my cowboy builder came into my life, I was just not on it in terms of my finances. And that was pretty much turned around when I realized that I sort of connected the dots between some events and realized actually how important, and the reason why it was causing me so much stress is because I didn't want to happen to me what had happened to my father. And so I got on the case and orchestrated a number of different things, which really pushed me into a completely different level, really out of my comfort zone. And here we are today. It was one of the key things which drove me to set up this business. Originally, it was very much driven on the coaching side of things, to really use some skill sets to help people. And then later, it was much more about finding some stability. And now I use these skills all the time in my life. And this is why I'm here talking to you today, because I want to give that experience back to you. So start building up in your portfolio of things really what your principles are. List them out. You may have 5, you may have 4, whatever those principles are, this is the core of who you are. And these are the things that is attached to your why that will help you drive your goals into a completely different zone. And that's where it gets so exciting, my friends, because this is the stuff that really empowers you to go and do things a bit differently. So once you've got your 5 principles and you've got your list of goals, you now know that you've got the toolkit to really push through when you get derailed. And there are always things that are going to get derailed, because let's take a very personal example. So at the moment we are in a period of Brexit. I work for a UK bank, and this corporation, like any UK organisation, is going through an extreme evolution in terms of how it does business. Therefore, it has been very, very intense, and it has meant that I've had to put a lot more hours into my, BAU corporate life and less to the enterprise vault. And that has been really quite challenging for me, and something I've really reconciled. And I now have a plan as to how I'm going to deal with that in the long term. So sometimes there will be a shift in focus, and there will be a different way that you have to challenge and find your way around these things. Because if your principle is really in your heart, and my third principle is that I want to give back. I have been so fortunate in my life, and I have this overarching, just overwhelming desire to really help people use some of these skill sets, because they're really simple things to do and use if you really tune in and you really want to make those changes. And every single one of us has the ability to tap into that. But if you don't know it exists, you won't make some of these transformational changes. And so I am just so passionate about giving that back to people. I do this in my job day in, day out, and I want to make sure that outside of the corporate life as well, that we really have access into some of these tools. That's why the price point at the Enterprise Vault is what it is. It's £27, because it is incredibly achievable to be able to purchase a monthly membership. It's less than a coffee a day, and it is the stuff that will really help you transform your life. And there are some amazing programs out there which you can choose to get involved in, but they are enormously expensive. And we use all of this stuff in the Enterprise Vault, and we give back to some incredible charities that are very focused on helping women get back on their feet in various guises. So this work is stuff that you can do that really will flip the dial for you. So really fundamentally important, charity and giving back and giving other people an opportunity to thrive, as I have done, is my third principle, and really important. So when I'm derailed because I have to spend more in my corporate world, more time in my corporate world, so therefore I have less time in my working on the Enterprise Vault, it doesn't derail me forever. I know I've had to make some small shifts. I know I've had to do things differently, and that's okay, because it is not forever. My principles are still there, and I've got the drive to make sure that we get back on track. And that is really vitally important, getting back on track whilst not letting anything sacrifice for your clients. Really, really important that you make sure that that happens. So you can see the principles are fundamentally underpinning literally all of my goals and everything that I'm driving towards. And when these events happen, we've had some enormous things happen in our world recently. With COVID, a lot of people in London right now are really poorly, and there is an emergency. There's our mayor has declared, and it's really quite a dire situation, and it can be incredibly overwhelmingly distracting, coupled with Brexit, coupled with the challenges of having toddlers. All of these things, they are all going to derail you if you let them. But if you have your principles, you'll know why you're doing what you're doing, and then it will help you shape what that next piece does for you. Now, really important that when you have got your list of principles together, write them down, stick them, I've got mine on here, you stick them down and make sure they're visible to you, so that when you are feeling inevitably a bit low or demotivated because things aren't going the way that you want them to, you pull out those principles that are very centered to your heart and you read them and you get back on track. And because you know those principles are so fundamental to pushing you to that next level. Really fantastic stuff that will keep you engaged and motivated, even when the tough is, the going gets really tough. The next thing is, in terms of your goals, as things come in, as things are changing, as you are getting derailed potentially by the things that are happening, is your gift to really manage that. So make sure your goals are prioritized and that you know what's really, really important and what is going to shift you every single time into that important zone. If there are things that are less important, understand why they're less important and bucket them in a separate category, so you tackle those at a slightly different time. And that's also fine, that you have your priority versus your non-priority, but to know why those two things exist and know how you're going to put the activities and the plan in place, as we discussed last week, to support really making sure that you nail those very important goals to you, and why. The most important thing is that you really articulate the why, because otherwise it becomes all a bit of a mix-up and you won't be laser focused on what the most important goals are. So you can almost put them in a matrix, which we'll send to you actually. Important goals, make sure you focus on those first. That's where your time's allocated to. And then the less important goals are going to be the ones that fall into the second bucket, and you can reorganize those. And those are the ones that really, as you're getting, derailed or something happens that takes you slightly off track, they're the things that you can sacrifice, but make sure that you are really focused on those important goals and finding new ways of trying to prioritize those in a way that's really helpful to you. Now, the third thing I want you to focus on is every single day to revisit what those principles are and what's driving you. Compare them to your goals. Make sure you've got that action plan in place that we talked about last week, and make sure you're doing that every day. And then the simple thing here is just to put the first thing first. So linked to the prioritization, make sure the thing which triggers the most amount of movement, whether it's at work or whether it's in your business. So for example, putting the first thing first, if you have got something you need to accomplish in the day, which is reliant on somebody else helping you to do, then it's really imperative that you make sure that that person is clear on the day that you want them to deliver, that they have to deliver on this and why. And then the first thing first is achieved, and they can be working through the day, as opposed to what most people do is have it in their mind that this needs to be done, and then they don't quite get to it, and before you know it, it's 12 o'clock and you haven't spoken to them, and then before you know it, it's 4 o'clock and the day is gone, and you've lost an opportunity for them to have a whole productive day working on helping you on whatever task it is that you're asked them to do. So put the first thing first. That is an important piece of your toolkit that you must make sure that you are focused on, because that is the stuff that shifts your day, that will help you get into a real productivity, momentous zone, which is pushing you harder, much harder towards your goals. So it's been a whistle-stop tour, I realise, and I'm hoping that you find this really, really helpful today. I know I have found this instrumentally valuable to achieving my goals. It is sometimes a bit difficult getting into those principles, but really understanding why these things are important to you is absolutely vital, so you don't get derailed from your goals. So really make sure that you take the time to do that work. It will make you feel so empowered, and it will really drive you through to make sure that you are accomplishing things on an everyday basis. And that is fundamentally important, because what this is doing is helping you build the belief. Because if you believe that you can really make a difference, I know that you will. My name is Sarah Bennett-Nash. I'm so grateful you're here today. Thank you so much for joining me. For those of you that have joined me live, I'm so grateful for you being here, and I love you guys. Have an amazing day. Enjoy the week ahead, and make sure you're planning it as we did last week. Love you, dudes, and I'll see you soon.